Hello and welcome everybody to my podcast, Finding the You and Mum. And today I'm extremely excited to introduce our guest, Jessica Dugan. Welcome to the show, Jessica. You're a blogger, and that obviously is a very thriving avenue for you to get your message across to lots of people around the journey of being a mum. You've got four children, and you also have an events and hire company, I understand. And that all of that together creates a very busy life, I can imagine. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So, tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a mum. Was it something that you'd long planned, or was it something that sort of crept up on you?
It was something that I've always wanted to be. Since I've been a little girl, I've just known that I've wanted to be a mum. So there was no doubt that I didn't want that to happen. And fortunately, when I met my husband, Sean, he also wanted multiple children. We both agreed that we wanted 3 to 5 children. And we are very, very blessed in terms of it didn't take us long at all. We've been able to have children very quickly. And that's, yeah, we ended up with four. We've met right in the middle, really, between 3 and 5, we said. And we've got four beautiful children, 3 boys and 1 girl.
And you're based in Sydney, is that correct?
Yes.
What part of Sydney are you from?
Blacktown area?
Lovely. Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm imagining that life is pretty hectic in your home with the four children and the two
Yes.
businesses essentially.
It is, definitely. And I'm also a high school teacher. So, on top of that,
Wow.
there's just multiple things going on. Caden, he's my eldest. He's 6 and a half, and he's my only one at school at the moment. So, I still have 3 little ones that are at home some days. So they do go to preschool a few days a week. But other than that, it's all about the juggle, I think. You're just on constant flight mode, thinking what has to be done next. My 2 older boys have footy training and soccer training, and it's
A
just a
lot to
juggling
juggle.
act every day.
And so tell us some hacks, because when I think about you working as a teacher and having the blog and also having the an events company, that seems like a whole lot to manage in a week. How do you get through your week and still, I guess, come up feeling like you understand how your world is operating and how you're positioned within it?
Well, unfortunately, in terms of like the event business, my friend and I, we are both mums, and that had to be put on hold a lot because it's a lot of weekend work, and I guess we felt like the weekend was our family time, that sacred family time, and then we were no longer getting it because we were setting up events. But in terms of teaching and the blog, I kind of try to stick to a very strict routine. The main things that have to be done each day. We've got a calendar on the fridge and everyone can see, and even my oldest goes, "Oh, what do we have on today?" Everyone knows what's happening in the family and we just try and plan it. Usually on a weekend, on a Sunday night, I'll say to my husband, "Okay, can we just go over the week so we're both on the same page? You need to do this on Monday, you're on pickup Tuesday, or I'm working this day." Because I'm a casual teacher, I don't have set days, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm working those days.
So it sounds like you need to have a lot of structure in your life to make sure that
Yes,
it runs quite smoothly.
definitely.
What
Yes.
inspired the idea of the blog? It's called Just Being Mum, which I love the name.
Yes,
Tell
thank
me a
you.
little bit more about the blog.
So I think when I had my first son, Caden, I had this thing where you kind of lose that part of yourself. I was the type of person who, before I had Caden, I was going to the gym regularly, I was eating so well. And then I think the wake up call is when you look in the mirror and you see yourself, you just see like almost like a shell of yourself because you know that that body is so different now. And as much as I knew that, I was like, wow, the female's body is just incredible. I always feel like I'm just so amazed. After 4 children, I just always think, gosh, how does a female's body just even do this? I started to see, like, read things about mums, how sometimes they felt like there was no avenue where they could discuss how they felt. So I just one day decided to write a blog about my birth story, and people said to me how much they loved it. And I just kind of kept doing
That
it.
sounds brilliant. And tell me a bit more about what people like to experience while reading and watching your blog in terms of, is it about letting a safe space be had where people can express the challenges of motherhood? Is it like focused a lot on problem solving, or what's the
Yes.
thrust of it?
I think people want, especially mums, they want to read something and think, okay, it's not only me. It's
Mm,
not only me that feels like that. They want someone to, yeah, address the challenges of motherhood, address that it's not always rainbows and fairy tales and it's all going to go well. And, sometimes I think people put up on Instagram and Facebook like what you want to see. And
mm,
everyone then has that pressure of, oh, how come I don't look like that person? And
mm,
I do it all the time. I might look at someone and I'll even say to my husband, gosh, how does she look like that? And she has
mm,
all these children and yet she's all like, she looks so
mm,
lovely, like she's just walked out of a beauty salon.
mm.
But then no one's then showing you the raw version of that. I think people want to see that it's normal for what they experience or how they feel.
Mm. What are some of the more, raw sharings that you get via the feedback of your blog? Like, what are you discovering that some of the biggest struggles that people privately have as a mum?
I think that feeling of loneliness, that feeling of, I've had a few mums contact me, felt quite lonely after giving birth, have been unable to navigate how to, I guess, adjust to this new lifestyle now. I've had a few mums contact me and say, oh, like, I feel like I can't handle it very well and I've only got one, but you've got four. Tell me, how do I feel like this where you perceive that you're doing so well and you have four?
Mm,
My advice is always like the number of children that you have, everything's hard with what you have. So when you only have one child, one is hard. When you have two
mm.
children, one seems easy. It's all relative.
Yeah. Have there been times in your life where you've actually experienced loneliness firsthand?
Definitely. Probably more so my third son. After my third son was born, he was born with a floppy airway. He has laryngay Malaysia. And because every time he would get like a runny nose, we would end up at Westmead Hospital.
Mm,
And I felt like I had to keep fighting for someone to listen to me. But because everyone just thought he was always sick, even like friends of mine would just think he was just a sick child, I felt lonely in that moment.
misunderstood.
Yes, misunderstood. And like, obviously, you're in the hospital and you're trying to say to doctors, something's not right here. I was just, brushed off continuously because he just kept making these weird sounds and they kept saying to me, oh, you're a mum, you're just worried. In that moment, you start to question yourself like, am I just exaggerating this? Ironically, it was actually a receptionist who ended up believing me, and we got a diagnosis, and I met an amazing doctor. But you go through that time where I feel like other parents didn't understand how I felt, and
Mm,
therefore it was hard to talk to them about it, if that makes sense. And I felt like I was kind of, although I had so much family support and my husband's support, it was a lonely time because you're just in and out of hospital, you have constant appointments, and I guess because I had all these appointments or was in hospital, I was, missing out on events. I was
yes.
missing out on spending other time with my other two boys.
Mm. Feeling during that period, like that sounds like you're in the trenches, you're worried about the well-being of your son and his future and what that means,
Yes.
perhaps not able to get him the care you believe he needs. And meanwhile, you're seeing that life is coasting by for others and they're attending social events and they're engaging and having picnics in the park, and you're stuck in this dilemma. How was that for you personally as a woman?
Yeah, it was really lonely. And I guess now that it's passed, I feel like it probably took me a good year afterwards to start to say to people, wow, that year was really hard.
Mm,
And I think people probably really noticed it at his first birthday party when I said a speech and then all of a sudden I started crying. And I haven't
mm,
cried at my other kids' birthday parties, but just that first year of his life was just so hard because I felt like I was robbed from that first year in his life, and I felt like he was robbed, to be
mm.
honest. I didn't get the same moments that I got with him compared to my other two boys at
Mm.
the
So
time.
how do you make peace with that really difficult year?
I think as a mum, I had to think to myself, like, I have three kids. Like, this was before Skylar was born. So I had three kids. Unfortunately, when you have multiple children, you need to divide yourself into different parts, whether you have to obviously divide yourself as a wife and you need to divide yourself as a daughter, a friend, and then obviously for your children. So I think I just had to keep saying to myself, I just kept saying to myself, like, he needed that time. Cooper, my son, needed me in that moment. And I would always try and have some special time with my other sons as well and try and explain to them why I was absent a lot. And, obviously trying to say to my friends, no, I can't attend this event because Cooper was sick again or whatever. Now I look back and I just think, gosh, that was such a blur, and I can't believe we got through that, because at the time, especially when he was in hospital at 4 weeks old, I thought, how are we going to get through this? But I think I know that it was the right thing to do and he needed it, and that was it.
He's come out the other end.
Yes, yes, yes. So he had surgery and he's definitely doing 1,000 times better.
So tell me some mantra or mindset that you've been able to develop within yourself that's allowed you to keep moving forward as a working mum.
I think one thing is, like, I always say to myself, you can't do it all, Jessica. You
Hmm.
know, there has to be a compromise at some point. My dad always likes to remind me, he's always like, 24, Jessica, 24, meaning like there's only 24 hours in a day. And he always thinks that I'm trying to put in 48 in a 24-hour day,
Yes,
which, sometimes is correct.
yes.
But that's what I've had to I try and give myself grace in terms of, something has to give.
Mm.
So, that can wait till tomorrow. Like, whether it be, washing, or, something to do with the kitchen, or, the lounge room's a mess full of toys. I always say that can wait for tomorrow. And I always try and think, well, do I want to do the washing, or I'd rather have this time and play with the kids?
Yep. Always the playtime seems like the most enjoyable
Yes,
option. So tell
yes.
me, like in your journey so far, what's a shocking truth or some really surprising reality that has in some way shaped who you are?
I think probably like the mental load of motherhood. I
Mm.
feel like everyone talks about the sleepless nights and feeding a baby and looking after them, but I don't think anyone ever talks about the mental load. And
Mm.
I think that can have a huge effect on a mother's mental health, really, their sense of self. I think, obviously, for me personally, the mental load, I feel like it can go one way or it goes the other. Sometimes I have so much in my head and I think, gosh, I feel like I've just non-stop all day, but I've achieved nothing.
Mm.
And I feel crap about that. I think,
Mm.
gosh, what have I achieved today? Even though I feel like I have achieved so much,
Mm.
like I feel like I've done so much, but I haven't achieved anything.
Mm.
And
How do you differentiate between doing things versus achieving things?
I think I feel like if I'm doing things, like, for example, we've gone out, or I've gone out with the kids and I've tried to tidy up the house, and then by 5 o'clock or something, I'm rushing around for dinner, and I think, gosh, how am I rushing around? I've been home for 2 hours, you know? So then I feel like I haven't achieved anything, because here I am, I'm stressed again because dinner's
Mm.
not ready. And even
Exactly.
though I have, because I've taken the kids out and we've done an activity and I've come home and I've cleaned the house, in my mind, it's like, but you didn't do dinner.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you have very high standards for yourself. What
Yes.
role or where does the concept of mother guilt fit into your story? Is it something that you are conscious of? Do you find that you experience it? What's your take on mother guilt?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely experience it. I think it's one of those things that no matter what, you're going to have it. I think it's just a matter of some people have it more than others. I feel guilty just for going to the shops, to be honest,
Mm.
because they're especially, and sometimes my kids will be like, "Oh, where are you going?" And obviously my boys, they're big mummy's boys, and I love that. But they'll be like, "Oh, where are you going?" Like,
Mm.
so then I feel bad. And I remember, like, it was actually only the other week I messaged my husband because I'd gone and I'd got my eyebrows done and I was getting presents for people. It wasn't even like I was doing things for myself besides the eyebrows. I was buying presents for people, and I text him and I said, like, all good there, and he's like, yeah, all good, like, no rush, everyone's fine. And I was like, gosh, I hate that I feel guilty that I'm
Mm.
out.
Mm.
And I think because it was one of those weeks where I had worked a lot of days that week,
Mm.
and I felt like this was my time at home, and then I was at the shops,
Mm,
But that was my time where I had to quickly get all these presents for birthday parties that we had coming up. And, I felt guilty about that. But obviously, he's very good. He's very much like, oh, why are you feeling guilty? Like you're allowed to have your time. And I think that's great. And obviously, I try and think of that as, I need a little bit of myself as well. But
mm.
I think personally, it's just one of those feelings that I don't think mums can always shake.
Where do you think your guilt comes from? Because I guess it's a real theme for me, because in my work, I have women coming to me, and even if they haven't named it as guilt, they describe feeling really rotten. And even sometimes they get depressed if they don't feel that they're living up to what they've decided is the standard that they would want to achieve as a parent. And I spend a lot of time trying to work through that with them simply because of the potential toxicity of that mother guilt, that idea that as a mother, we have to forfeit ourselves and our priorities as well, because if we don't put everyone else first, then we're bad. So
Yeah.
where did your mother guilt as a concept come from?
I think obviously as much as I love my job and I love being a teacher, I would prefer to be home with my children. But unfortunately in this world that we're living in where everything costs so much money, I need to go back to work. So whereas like for example my mum, she was off for like 15 years of our childhood. So I think I always gosh, I wish I could be like my mum and be around the kids all the time like she was.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it stems from that I felt like she was always off with us. I always
Mm,
wanted to have the same home life that my mum did. It was a
mm,
different time back then.
mm. And so what do you think of the idea then of the supermum? Because, we hear that being bandied around. And when I think about how you want to approach motherhood, it feels like you almost would love to have that don the cape so that, that the super mum gets to be part of who you are. In some ways, it feels like you hold yourself to a very high standard. Share with me your thoughts about the super mum.
I think if it's used in the right context, it can definitely boost mums' self confidence and their self worth, especially if you have like some of my friends, I feel like they've had different health issues with their kids or different problems. And as soon as you give them a compliment about themselves, they think, oh, actually, well, yes, I have overcome this, I am that. But in reality, I think any mum out there who's doing the best job she can is a super mum in my eyes. Unfortunately, not everyone gets labelled as that. And I
Mm,
think that's when it possibly gives the unnecessary pressure
mm,
to other mums.
mm,
But I'm all about giving confidence boost to
mm,
any mums that need it.
mm,
So, not necessarily even the word super mum, any confidence boost is fine.
mm.
But I definitely think Supermum is a confidence booster.
Right. So you don't necessarily see it as a negative thing that society is constructed to wear mums out because they're constantly striving for this ideal. You're seeing it more as an opportunity to celebrate mothers that are just doing their best and being able
Yes,
to label them back
yeah,
to super mums.
definitely,
Yeah. Yeah. And that sounds
definitely.
like so. Tell us a piece of advice that you've received that you could share about your personal growth in motherhood. We've talked about, the wonderful role you balance providing and giving, teaching as your career and as a mom. And it feels like, you're a very generous person in terms of your time and your efforts. What
Oh no, no, it's terrible. It's terrible. As in, like, what do I do for myself?
or did you receive some advice at some point that you could share that really has helped you along the way in terms of realizing that it's okay to be Jess, separate from wife, blogger,
Yes,
business
I think
owner?
someone once said to me, like, oh, just remember that you were Jess first. Like
Mm,
before you became a mum, like remember that you were Jess first. You got to fill your bucket first before you
mm,
can fill other people's buckets. It's kind of
mm.
like that thing, I guess, when you're on a plane, how they say put your life jacket, put your mask on first, your breathing
Yeah.
mask on first, because then you're unable to help anybody.
So how do you do it?
Well, recently I've just joined back at the gym. So that's my little avenue, I guess you could say, at the moment. I mean, look, the juggle is still there, me trying to make time to go because as much as I'm very good about giving advice to say, yep, you need your own time, and I'm so big on that about saying to my friends, yep, you go do that, like that's excellent for you, but I'm terrible at taking my own advice, and I'll admit that,
Mm.
and I say to my husband, gosh, like I don't really have any hobbies, like because, I guess between all the things that I have with the kids, I just don't.
Yeah. It's interesting that you should say, I've just recently joined the gym, so I'm going to allocate that as my me time. I've pushed back against that quite a lot, especially in my own life, because,
Mhm.
I go to the gym, I take what I need to do, like eating and
Yes.
sleeping. It's
Yes.
self-care, and it should fall in the category of self-care, separate
100%.
from it. Even when you were like saying you were doing some shopping and getting gifts and things like that, again, that I don't qualify that as me time because
I
again, you're doing for others.
I know.
The me time is the time where you are just literally saturating every minute with things
Yeah.
that are going to help you connect with, the woman that you are.
Yes, I know. And to be honest, besides the gym, I don't have anything. I mean, it's
Mm.
something that I want to work on 100% because, Sean says to me, "Oh, well, find a hobby. What would you like to do?" And I guess before I had kids, to be honest, I didn't really like I had the event business with my friend, and that was a big part of our lives, and we loved it. And although we still love setting up events for our kids and our friends' kids, I guess the logistics of it just got too hard. But besides that, obviously, I did love going to the gym before becoming a mum. And so that's something that I'm proud that I can still keep now.
Did you love to do before being a mum?
I used to go to the movies and have lots of brunch dates and coffee dates and go shopping and spend money on a dress without hesitation.
Yes.
Yeah, those type of things. Like I never really had a particular hobby, as you can
Mm,
say. It's obviously just catching up with friends and shopping, and that
mm.
was really my thing to do. And don't get me wrong, I still catch up with friends, but they just involve children now. They're more like play dates.
Can you imagine a future where you can start to carve a little bit of time for yourself, where you just go solo and hang out with a friend for an hour or two?
Yes, definitely. And look, I still like I have some really good uni friends, for example, that we have kind of made this pact that we're all teachers and we make this pact that every school holidays we go out together and whether it be lunch or dinner and it's just us and no kids and it's fantastic. We always say, gosh, we haven't laughed like that together and we do organize catch up with friends and have dinner and without the kids, but I do hope that maybe in the future I can do that without feeling guilty about it.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I can sense that you're naturally a social person, so you'd probably very much miss those interactions just being an adult and being a woman and not having to make sure you've got one eye on a kid so they don't
Yes.
run out. But yeah, I can sense that tussle right now for your life being so time poor, and you're like, if I've only got those 24 hours in a day right now, especially because you've had an unwell kid as well, you
Hmm.
probably feel it's difficult to pry yourself away. And
Yes.
I think that in the course of one's life, we all have situations and blocks of time where we have to forfeit the things that might bring us pleasure or fulfillment separate
Hmm.
from everybody else.
Yes.
It's just a nice idea to think that we'll always go back to it and we will nurture that element within ourselves. I talk about it in my work because it's a big part of why people come to me with empty nest syndrome, because they have put everything into their family and it's noble and they've got these beautiful families, but they have neglected themselves to such an extent that there's this tremendous loss when the kids don't need them in the same way.
Yeah.
This isn't when they move out, because I'm finding very much that they just don't move out and they can't afford to. In fact, they bring their partners to live often.
Yes.
Um, but it's about that subtle shifting where you're not their favorite person anymore. They have other pursuits that don't necessarily involve you at all, and it
Yeah.
leaves you this like lingering feeling of, well, what am I going to do now? And I always think it's a great idea to in your pocket have a few things that you're nurturing just for yourself that you
Hmm.
can just continue to just chip away at, so that when the time comes that you do find a spare hour or two, you know how you want to fill it. It'll be targeted in such a way that it does feel really cup filling, because it isn't just like, my goodness, I've got this time on my hands, and it's kind of gets wasted with either scrolling or something meaningless because you
Yes.
haven't figured out.
No, no, exactly.
You got
No.
any tips around how you might stay connected to yourself?
I think scheduling that
Mm,
time is very important. And that is what I have started to do. Things like
mm,
I've scheduled in my gym classes based on the calendar and organized it with my husband on the days that if I need to get the kids minded by someone else or is he home that day. So I think definitely scheduling that me time is important. As much as it sounds bad to say you need to schedule it in, unfortunately,
mm,
I do need to schedule it in because it's kind of like when people have training sessions or
mm.
school interviews or whatever, it has to be scheduled in.
I think it's a great idea to schedule it in, and I actually encourage that, because otherwise it always does fall by the wayside. And
Yes.
I'm a fan, because if you've scheduled it in, like every other thing in your day that you're going to adhere to,
Yeah.
oh, it's my time. Get to
Yes.
watch a movie tonight.
Yes.
Whatever it is that you might,
Yeah.
I once a
Yes.
week,
Okay.
completely
Yeah.
on my own with candles and oil,
Yep.
shebang, because I realized if it wasn't scheduled in, it literally was not going to happen.
Yes.
And
Definitely. Definitely. Well, my husband makes a joke if he sees something on the fridge or the calendar that's on the fridge, and he'll be like, "Oh, well, it's on the calendar, so it has to happen."
brilliant.
So it's very much like, yeah, we write everything down on the calendar or, and obviously reminders all the time. Yeah, I think it's important because otherwise, as you said, it just kind of goes down the priority list, doesn't it? If you
Absolutely.
don't put it in there, it just is kind of like everyone else's priorities are there and
Hmm.
your priorities down the bottom.
So, if I had to ask you, what does finding the you and mum mean to you specifically, Jess? What would you say?
I think it's about finding the person that you were prior to becoming a mum, but also the person that you have evolved into since becoming a mum.
Hmm.
Because I don't think that I am the same person that I was before becoming a mum, but I think that I'm a better version of that self now. I feel like you evolve and you need to change. That's the fact. As a person, you need to change because your worries change, your priorities change, your outlook on life changes. So I think it's about finding whatever makes you happy, or I guess something in yourself that gives you that self confidence, or just I guess defines your sense of self.
Mm.
I think that's what the you is. I think it's about finding the you, whether that be someone who likes to go to the gym, whether that's someone who likes to, I don't know, start knitting, or whether that be someone who, prefers to stay at home with their kids and can. Like, I think it's whatever works for you, then
Yes.
that's the you. I don't think it should be a comparison. I don't think it should be the same as the next person. I
Mm.
think it's very different. It's finding that piece of you that I guess you had before becoming a mum, but you still want to keep afterwards.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I love the fact that you said that, I'm a different person. And of course we are, because we have just had our world flipped upside down by having children. Growth is one of the beautiful byproducts of being a mother.
Yes.
And I wouldn't like to think that everybody's trying to claw their way back to the way they lived and the way they perceived the world before
Mm,
becoming a mum, because
yes.
almost all the learning opportunities and all of the I guess the hardship, if you like, that you've gone through would have been for naught. This experience of motherhood is the best playing field for growth and learning and understanding.
Mhm.
And I love the idea of finding the you in mum is, it's not static, it's ever evolving, but it's just
Yes.
having that ongoing connecting back and reaching back and asking yourself, who am I in all of this story if I
Mhm.
wasn't the title mum?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you've read about flamingos, the female flamingos, how they lose their color. When they're constantly addressing the needs of their young, they start to lose their pink
Mm,
feathers. And eventually, when the young becomes more independent, their pink starts to grow back. And I just always think, gosh, that's just such a fantastic comparison to mothers, isn't it?
I haven't heard that before, and I absolutely love it because it's
Yeah,
so symbolic, isn't it?
it is. It is because as you're looking after your babies, you feel like you are losing pieces of yourself, whether it's bits of your color or bits of your feathers, as the flamingos, you lose pieces of yourself, and then something gets a little bit easier, and maybe it's that they're bottle fed now or like they're toilet trained or something, and then all of a sudden you get that little bit of color back and you're like, oh, I have that tiny little bit of extra independence now, or something changes. And I just think it's a perfect example of what motherhood is like. During different stages you may feel like you're losing more of your feathers,
Yes.
but it's about finding your way back to your original form or even a better form.
Yep, absolutely. We all want to be vibrant in our own special way, just like the flamingos are. I mean, I love looking at those beautiful, spectacular pink flamingos. They're such
Yes.
a phenomenal bird in nature. And to
Yeah.
think of mothers as exactly that. And we want to make sure that we're our most vibrant, zesty selves for that.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
And thanks so much for coming on the podcast, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me. I really
I,
appreciate it.
I wish you very well in all of your endeavors, that
Thank you.
people jump on and enjoy your blog and can share that experience of what it's like having a hectic life, but it's still ensuring that there's just that balance enough that
Yeah.
that Jessica gets to thrive as well.
Thanks so much.
You take care, and perhaps we'll see you around the traps.
Okay,
Take care.
see you later.
Bye bye.